Hey guys, and welcome back. Guess what? I passed by KBS Hot Daddy while I was at KBS recording my radio show there. I said before that I do a traditional Korean music show, which has some great content. I'll put a link again if you want to check it out. If you really want to learn about how history and Korean traditional music intersect, it's kind of a cool short music program, and you can listen to traditional pansori and get to know a lot about traditional Korean musical instruments and some of the hybrids. But anyhow, I was so distracted because there is an eyeglass store there that I like to go to get my contacts, and like my prescription I think has changed or something, and the guy there is really cool, and I thought that these were the best daily contact lenses, BioTrue Bausch & Lomb, ever. So I was like, okay, I need to get some more. I haven't seen him. And then also I had some glasses that I like basically squashed, and he had to like repair them. And then I was just like, I don't know, do I want to go today? And like I went around all over the place. Like all the exits and entrances were closed because of the virus. And then I was just like, yes, I'll go. And then so I was just like really grateful because he was there, he was nice, I hadn't seen him forever, it was like kind of like seeing an old friend. And then he was like, yeah, why don't we just check your eyes again? And then totally got a new prescription, totally could see better. And then he was like, look, there's a new like contact lens that came out, which is better, try it out. So he put in like a sample, and then he gave me like 20 free ones because he hadn't seen me in a while. And so I was, and they're so comfortable. And these ones are Alcon Dailies Total One. So water lens. So if you're also a contact lens wearer, I'm just saying these are the best. I didn't think you can improve upon contact lenses after all of this time and everybody's getting the laser surgery. But I swear, these are like the best. Anyhow, so I was just kind of like floating on like, I was like, oh, how cool. Like, and you know, sometimes you're just like, you know, like, can like the heavens like reward you anymore? And then boom, like right when I was basically going to be talking about like what KBS Hot Daddy was going to say and what we were talking about him saying, passed by him. And like while I was on my way out, I was also kind of like thinking about like, oh my god, like today the parking lot was super full and I have to pay for parking outside every 10 minutes, like the bill is going up. So I kind of went out, but I was just like, no, I should have really, and I didn't even think about it because I was just like, oh yeah, I'm kind of used to seeing people I've seen on TV in that building, but then I totally forgot about like, oh wait, I need to talk to him for my channel and for you guys. So all right, next time, I don't know, but that just seemed like that was so like, you know, kind of like sent by the heavens about like a sign, like, but that was him. I've never seen him before ever. Anyhow, so I just thought I would share that with you because I thought that was like really cool, because that was a sign, because I wanted to share with you today, because that literally this morning I saw one of his reports on the whole Gwangju building collapse that happened in June, and I know a lot of you had asked me about that incident and wanted me to cover it and kind of get into like the why. We all know what happened. Essentially, there was a 5-story building in Gwangju that was being demolished, and it looked like they had done everything to wall it off and, you know, prepare the area so that nobody's there, and they just needed to basically, you know, tear down the building. And in a real like kind of freak of nature, this building had collapsed and fallen on top of a bus that had stopped next to the building, to let off passengers and pick up passengers. 9 people died. 8 other people were injured. So this was like a crazy tragedy, and people were like, what the heck happened and why? So KBS Hot Daddy really just laid it out extremely simply here, because after there was an analysis by the Ministry of Land Transport, they basically said that this contract to demolish the building went to Hyundai, so it always goes to like a reputable fancy company, and they do it by the contract by the price per square meter, and it was about $280 per square meter. So they give them this flat fee, but then Hyundai's like, oh, well, I don't know, we don't really want to do it, let's just outsource this. So then they outsourced it to another company, Hansol, and they pay them $100 a square meter, right? So they don't do anything and they pocket $180 a square meter, and so they give Hansol $100 a square meter. Apparently, up until this point, it is legal to do that. So Hansol is now in charge of this project, and it's $100 a square meter, but then they're like, well, we don't want to do this either, let's outsource this one more time. So then they outsource it to another company called Pexol, and at that point apparently it was illegal, and they pay that company $40 a square meter. So now what should have been a project that was $280 a square meter with that sort of quality is now down to $40 a square meter. So 1/7 of what the budget was. So that is probably why, that's what they're saying, that is probably why an accident like this happened. And this is why there's always these random ways people die in Korea because of corruption. And this is probably why when on paper you see things like, well, it seems legitimate. I mean, it seems like it's not like totally crazy or out of bounds when you look at like, well, what are the rules and regulations that Korea has on the books? I mean, granted, even on the books, there are things that Korea needs to fix, but looking at the budget, I don't even know if $280 is sufficient. Probably that might even be under, but when you really look at what happens, it's always like cut, and the real price that is actually paid for the services is, look at that, $40 a square meter, 1/7. So what kind of quality are you gonna get? And at that level, really, who's doing it? And so there was an investigation of whether organized crime was involved. And of course, construction and organized crime all across the world is very much linked traditionally, and in Korea that is very much so the case. So if you have organized crime linked to construction, especially if you can force, is basically what it's like slave labor, right? So you can accept $40 a square meter and still probably make out. And the reason why this relates to our presidential candidate update is because the person that they're accusing of being that gangster that was involved in this building collapse is also the gangster that is accused of holding hands with our favorite knife-obsessed presidential candidate, Lee Jae Myeong.
What?
In this picture that was released by one of his rivals in his own party. Yeah. So Eej Myeong is holding hands with this gangster in this photo. Now, I do have to make this caveat is that this photo apparently was released by Lee Nak-yeon's camp. That's the main rival. It's like the next guy on the rankings right now in his party, in the liberal side, and his camp is really asking for a response. But some people are saying, like, I don't know, like maybe this photo is like doctored, like is it really him holding hands with this guy? But in any event, they are being accused of being close together. And Eej Myeong before has already been accused of having ties to organized crime. This guy, though, has already been linked to an organized crime syndicate called Shinyang Obi Pa. Pa is basically the Korean word for group or gang. These organizations also have been around in Korea for quite a long time. That's why he's kind of old. And if you see the other pictures, he has been right next to President Moon very recently. So this is the gangster, supposedly, allegedly, that has already been next to the president. So is he gonna be next to the next president? Now, I do have to tell you something. Why do they legitimately, per se, stand next to the president, especially at these events? They say that they actually arose from the May 18th democracy movement. So if you want to take a look at one of my other videos on the Gwangju democracy movement, where basically in Gwangju they were trying to rebel against dictatorship and against martial law and against basically being beat up by like their own Korean dictatorial forces, they were saying that that's where that movement arose, like they were being like their own, people's militia. In that way, like you can kind of consider like a people's militia the origins maybe of then a gangster tribe, and then it turns into maybe a gang or a mafia. But that is the way that they justify saying like, oh no, we're not a mafia, we're a citizens organization for democracy. But I still don't understand how that would justify current thuggery or blackmail or doing all these kind of like mafia type stuff. But that's how it seems as if they kind of justify their existence as an organization and some of their cover. So the modern day gangsters and mafia in Korea, just like in other countries, they're sort of trying to clean up their image by going into more legitimate businesses. And so it seems like in Korea, it's trying to transition to legitimate businesses, and then also, in this case, I guess, being part of this like image of like, no, we're a citizens organization for democracy. Have I seen gangsters before in Korea in real life? There's one time that really close up that comes to mind, and it was at a hotel in Busan. It was years ago, and there were all these guys that were dressed up like, in those typical like black polyester suits with just a white shirt, and they were like all bowing and kind of being like really like good customer service to like a couple of guys. And I was like, wow, this hotel is like treating all of these people like VIP. This is like a really good hotel. And then I realized, wait a minute, they're just doing it to those guys over there. And oh wow, and they have like all these tattoos and stuff. And I was like, and they're just opening the doors for just those guys, not us. And I was just like, they're not hotel staff. And so I was like, oh, that's creepy. That is creepy. So yeah, I have seen them. Oh, and that makes me remember another case. I don't know if they were Korean gangsters. They might have been overseas visiting, but when you do go to like a sauna and there's these like guys with like the tattoos, well, when they put their clothes back on, sometimes they look like the most dorky middle-aged men. So you cannot tell. That's probably part of their disguise, because when they put on their clothes, because they looked so scary, right? With all their tattoos and stuff, like, you know, in like the steam area and like the shower area. Then when they put on their clothes, like it looked like almost, I don't know, I don't remember what it was, but you know, kind of like those men who have like socks with the sandals, like really like no fashion sense and just like dorky. That's even scarier, because it seemed like they were purposely doing it, or it was like so that they can like just blend in. So you never know. Another update on Eej Myeong. He is being accused of lying about how many times he has had drunk driving on his record. He says only once, but you know that actress that still has an axe to grind against him, the one that he had an affair with, and I don't know what he did to her, where she is just out to get him still. She seems so still upset and angry. That means you know that he did not treat her right. And that still says something about Korea. It's like people are just willing to accept that, yeah, he had an affair with an actress, and you know, I guess that's fine. Well, she said that, no, dear, you're lying, because remember that time when you were about to leave my house at the early hours of the morning, like at 6 or 7 a.m., and you were about to call like one of those like Uber drivers, and I was just like, why? It's like, you're probably sober by now. And he's like, oh, well, if I get one more drunk driving ticket, I'll get my license revoked, which basically means it's more than one, because I think it's like 3 strikes and you're out. And so she's saying like, nope, this guy is lying in the media interviews because that's what he told me. And so she's just like out there trying to use every opportunity to make a dig back at this guy. It's not even a lover's quarrel. Like, this relationship ended like years ago, and she's still really mad about it because he treated her so badly, I guess. What I find more shocking is that Korean people are just kind of like, well, yeah, of course he had an affair, that's fine. And like, yeah, he's still running for president, that's fine. Yeah, he's holding hands with the gangster, yeah, that's fine. But it's kind of like goes to show you like, where are the lines that are okay to cross in a society and where the lines are not okay, which is differ from each society. So I'm just saying, like, I guess that's okay here. Alright, so now let's move over to Yoon Seok Yeol, the conservative candidate. And so he's also had some weird episodes right now. You know, the whole slut shaming on the wall. He's trying to divert some of his image and try to change some of his kind of like fuddy-duddy image, but it's just kind of like going the wrong way. He has this weird photo of himself on the bed on Instagram. One of the people on YouTube is saying like, I don't know, he looks like he is like super diabetic, because there's like now talk about, you know, the health of like the future president. And some people are saying like, gosh, that's like what my, you know, diabetic relative looks like. And people are criticizing him, saying that he's trying to kind of become more of a man of the people, or like kind of like reduce some of the negative parts of his image, but it's not working because he's not offering the alternative of like, then what other alternative positive parts, namely what kind of vision or what kind of greatness are you proposing for the country? Because right now what he is riding on is this frustration with the current government. So when people say like, okay, we just need a change, well, he can ride that wave. But people are a little bit smarter than that because they know that just asking for a change or just trusting the person that says, I will change it, is not enough, because they want that follow-up of like, yeah, but change it to what? Because we've had so much bait and switch that we need to know that, yeah, you can say you'll change it, but change it to what? And the what is not very clear from him. And the what that he has said right now, in the last 2 weeks, has been shocking. Number one, he said that there was no radiation that came out of Fukushima. Like how, maybe the radiation went to his head, because what are you talking about? That is like one of the most controversial things that has been around for a while, and now with the release of all of the radiated water coming up in a couple of years, especially like when the new president is probably going to get inaugurated, that's the schedule for this water to come out, and he's saying like it's not going to come, there's no radiation that ever came from one of the worst nuclear disasters in the world. A little weird. Secondly, he said, we should relax standards on tainted and contaminated food so that the poor could buy it, so that it could ease their budgets. So he's basically saying like, oh yeah, we should let the poor buy tainted and contaminated food. What kind of, where is his brain? What, I don't even know what to say to that. That makes absolutely no sense. That's not even a policy. That is like regressing on laws, and he is supposed to basically be experienced as the nation's top prosecutor. It's the nation's top prosecutor. You should have been on the side of going after companies that want to get away with selling contaminated or tainted food products. What were you doing then? Were you really then trying to help companies get away with loosey-goosey standards on their food and try to poison the people? Is that what you were trying to do? Or is that what you want to do and trying to accept, I don't know, some scholarship money? Is that what you're trying to do? Because that was just one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. So as we've seen from both of these candidates so far, one of the criticisms that I've heard that is very apropos from one of the Korean YouTubers is they were saying that a lot of these elite Korean people, after their 20s, they really rarely crack open a book, and they think that their whole world, or the world in general, is basically the same as the world of their insular circle. And definitely I have seen that, and it's not a pretty sight, because they try to force the facts of the rest of the world to fit into their own narrowing world. And just because that they scored like a really high test score when they were like a teenager, when they were a teenager, they think that they can rule the world for the rest of their lives based on that one score. It makes no sense when they barely even studied in college. So like, we really have to think about that. You really want to be governed by people with just a high school education? Okay, so just as a little bit of a bonus, we have a Hyuna update. She has come back to Korea from being in the United States for about a month or so. You know, our favorite crazy entertainment reporter said that she had fled because there was a coronavirus outbreak at her favorite karaoke bar among the staff that particularly wait on her. He claimed that she was fleeing because she didn't want to get tested extensively, because he was implying that had she gotten extensively tested, her blood would show other contaminants that may support his viewpoint that she was partaking in more than alcohol. But she says that that's not the case at all. She was just there to handle some business. It was already arranged from before. You know, she like owns real estate there. She does business. She is a business woman, and she's like launching a makeup line. Like, she is busy. Like, she does stuff. And so she's back in Korea. But I wanted to share this video with you because I thought it was just funny, because I think it shows both sides of the debate. It is a different video of her in the club, and she's underneath the DJ booth. It's so funny because on the one hand, right, she's like over 40, right? But she looks amazing. And so like half the comments say like, oh, what are you talking about? She looks so good. And she looks like she's just having fun. The other half of the comments say like, no, she looks like she's on something. She looks like a little bit out of it. What is she doing down there like a troll? Okay, fine. But what kind of jarred me was when one in the comments said like, oh yeah, well, look at her hands. She's just like doing like movements as if she's like an old lady. I was like, oh my God, that is so mean, but that is so true. Like, when she did that, she looked like Jung-hwa. And so it's like, oh, like you can look young, but the way you dance, unless you're really like conscious or if you've trained yourself to dance younger, I think the way you dance really shows your age. Like, I think it's a subconscious tell. So I was just like really fascinated by that. And then I saw, Lisa Rinna, from Real Housewives, and then like she looks totally young, right? And then like I didn't realize she's 58. I thought she was like 48, who looked like she was like 35, but she's like 58. But then like when she was dancing and stuff, like she was dancing like really weird, and I was like, well, maybe she was just like working out to like workout videos or like Zumba or something. That was just like while she was dancing. But then I realized she is dancing like a 58-year-old. Like, that's probably the style of like the way they danced, like, during her era. And I was just like, and then I was just like, so really, I think like the dancing shows your age. So I was like, okay, that's something to, kind of like just know, as just something kind of like interesting to kind of, as a clue to do like a personality profile on somebody. So yeah, like when you're looking at the dancing video of like Mr. A, that's definitely, a young guy in 2021. That was definitely something different. So again, SJM's dad is doing his press arbitration this week, so let's send him some very good, positive vibes and hope he gets some progress, and that hopefully we'll have some great news to have updates on later this week. All right, guys. Hope you have a good one. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Tune in next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Love you.